What if I told you the biggest mistake on YouTube isn't bad thumbnails, crappy titles, or even inconsistent posting? It's how you're approaching your niche. Seriously, I built a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers that makes multiple six figures a month, and the breakthrough happened when I stopped following traditional niche advice and started doing this. Now, most creators think that they need to find their perfect little box and stay in it forever, and that's exactly why they stay broke. Instead, I discovered something that I call Niche 2.0, which turned my failing channel into a 30K a month channel and eventually a 300K a month channel. And it's helped over 20 of my clients build 7 and 8 figure businesses from YouTube. And in this video, I'm going to show you step by step exactly how to pick your niche 2.0 and also how to position yourself in your niche. And if you appreciate me doing this type of content, let me know by gently tapping that like button, and let's jump in right now. Actually, before we dive in, I created something really special for you. It's the Niche Validator GPT. We basically took hundreds of conversations that we had with our clients, helping them pick the right niche, and also combined it with our niche selection methodology and created an interactive chatbot that will literally ask you questions and help you to pick the right niche. And it'll help you to pick niche ideas that have $100,000 a month potential if money is what you're trying to go for. And I'm not even kidding here. This thing will save you months of wasted effort. So grab it free down in the description and the pinned comment below, and I'll remind you later, but seriously, don't forget to check it out. Now, before getting into step-by-step how to do this, let me tell you a quick story about how I discovered all this. When I started on YouTube, I thought I was trapped in the college degree niche forever. I was basically a career / education coach, and I'd help people decide if college was right for them, if so, what degree was right for them, and if not, what better alternatives they had to get a good job. And I was mostly stuck at 10K per month. Once in a while, I'd have a 20 or 30K month, but I was stuck there for a long time. And I knew I could do way more. And when I say stuck, I mean I was stuck for years. Then I discovered what I called the evolution method, and I started testing different content areas. And I gradually moved from college degrees to courses to certificates to remote jobs. And finally, I realized I could talk about pretty much anything as long as my audience was interested in the topic. And my big eureka moment was this. I wasn't trapped in a niche, I was the niche. And this is the shift that took me from 10 to 30K per month to over $300,000 a month. And it didn't just work for me. Take Josh, for instance. When I met him, he was making less than $1,000 a month on YouTube. He was talking about remote jobs and IT careers. Now, he had the knowledge, but he wasn't really reaching people effectively. And the problem wasn't his business niche, it was how he was positioning that niche on YouTube. And after implementing the Niche 2.0 framework, he didn't change his business focus much at all. However, he did change how he presented his expertise. And within 6 months, Josh went from making $1,000 to $5,000 a month, then quickly $10,000 a month, and eventually over $185,000 a month. And that's how powerful Niche 2.0 is. It's not about changing what you do, it's about positioning it properly. So step one is to research, right? Because before you commit to any niche, you need to validate it with real data. I'm talking about making sure people will actually pay for what you're selling. And Reddit is what I call the internet's crystal ball, okay? Topics like the keto diet, dopamine detox, monk mode, and all kinds of other topics. They all blew up on Reddit before they got onto YouTube. So I like to use tools like Anvaka to map out subreddit connections. And it shows you that if someone's interested in dopamine detox, for instance, they're probably also into monk mode and maybe fasting. And it's really cool and useful to see the connections because you basically are getting insight into the mind of your ideal client or viewer. Now, another great tool is GigaBrain. It's AI-powered Reddit insights, and it shows you which keywords and subreddits are hot and the sentiment around them. Now, once you've narrowed down some potential niches, move to quick validation. So an example for this would be Amazon book reviews. Right? So if a book on your topic has 5,000 reviews, that means roughly 50,000 people bought it. And that means if it's a $10 book, they made $500,000 from one book. That's pretty good validation that people are willing to spend money to learn information on the topic. You can also check out Udemy. If courses on your topic have thousands of reviews, people are willing to pay to learn it. Another thing to look at would be Fiverr and Upwork to see if people are paying for services, for instance, consulting, or that kind of thing related to your niche. And then you can also check out Meta's ad library, right? If companies are consistently spending money on ads for your niche or your topic, then it's probably going to be profitable. They wouldn't be burning cash if they weren't making even more money. And then finally, use Google Trends. And by the way, I don't really care so much about total volume. I care much more about direction. Is it growing or is it shrinking? For example, during my live stream today, somebody asked me about the carnivore diet and whether I could do some research on that topic. And the carnivore diet isn't as popular as the keto diet, but it is growing fast while keto is declining. So you always want to attach yourself to a growing trend, not a shrinking market. So let me show you exactly how I'd apply this to a real niche. Let's say one of you watching wants to create content around the carnivore diet. First, I check Reddit. And what do I see? The r/carnivore subreddit has seen significant growth in subscribers in the past few years. You can see how the graph suddenly pointed up. That's a strong signal. Then I check Amazon and look at carnivore diet books. And I see Paul Saladino's The Carnivore Code has over 5,400 reviews. And assuming all 5,400 people bought the $9.59 price, which is even discounted, that would bring it to a total of $52,000 in sales. But remember, only 1 out of 10 people typically review. So chances are he made about 10 times more than that. So chances are it's about $520,000 in sales. So we know that people are willing to spend their money and their time to read this book. Then on Udemy, we found a $13.99 course that has over 2,000 student reviews. Again, people willing to spend their time and their money to learn more about the carnivore diet. And then let's look at Google Trends to confirm what I suspected. And we can see that the carnivore diet is rapidly overtaking keto in terms of search volume. Now, keto is still probably more popular and more well-known, but carnivore diet is hot right now. It's growing fast. And that's what I tend to look for. So you can see here the carnivore diet is in blue and the keto diet is in orange. So these are massive green flags, right? This niche has serious potential. The keto diet is in a bit of a decline, even though it had, a massive amount of success in the last 10 to 15 years. But the carnivore diet is on the up and up. The next step is creating your unique positioning. This is where you get to showcase your personality and what makes you different. So just as a kind of a bit of a interesting example, there's a channel called Humbled Trader, and trading is insanely competitive on YouTube, right? I wouldn't say it's a saturated niche because there's just so many people interested in it, but it is a very competitive niche. But she stands out by combining pole dancing with trading content. Sounds crazy, but it actually works. So she'll start videos showing her pole dancing, then cut to trading tips. Then her thumbnails show pole dancing with trading indicators in the background. It's pretty genius. So this is kind of a humorous example, but it really goes to show that you really can just combine different things that you're passionate about or different things that you're interested in into your content to make it unique and different. And the point here is to showcase your unique personality. I'm not telling you that you have to pole dance in your carnivore video, but what I am saying is showcase your unique personality, showcase the things that you are passionate about. So a really good exercise here is to mark down all the things you like, all your hobbies, all your weird quirks, all the things that you've spent a lot of time doing in your life, whether you were naturally talented at them or not, and then all the things that you're naturally talented at, and all the things that other people have told you that you're good at. Another way to position yourself is to specialize in a specific demographic. For instance, like financial planning, but specifically for divorced women over 50 who are high achievers. Or another way to make yourself stand out is to create a unique methodology. Maybe you teach languages by combining neuroscience, gamification, and cultural immersion. And that makes you different from every other language teacher. Or you can leverage cultural trends. Like you could be a minimalist Michelin chef who creates gourmet meals using only 5 ingredients. The easiest positioning? Solve problems for the past version of yourself. Honestly, this is what has gotten probably 80% of my clients' success. And one of the biggest reasons for that is because you don't have to do any market research. Market research is just remembering your past, right? So think about your painful problems that you had in the past that you were able to overcome. And a really good exercise for this is to imagine that you have a time machine and you could go back in the past and tell yourself, you had 15 minutes to talk to yourself. What things would you tell yourself that would be super valuable, that would save you a massive amount of time, effort, money, and emotional energy, etc., right? I'm sure literally every person on the planet can think of these things and just be like, oh yeah, that would be incredible if I could tell myself to avoid this or to do that instead of this. Even just getting into a job, for instance, let's just say you wanted to teach other people how to get into a job that you're doing. If you could go back in time and tell yourself the exact skills that you need for the job, the exact certifications that would make you look good for the job, the exact portfolio that would showcase those skills that you have, and how to answer questions correctly in an interview, you probably would have gotten the job like 5 times faster and you would have made money faster, right? So think of these types of things, right? Think of things where if you had a time machine and you could go back into your past and tell yourself what to do, what would you tell yourself? And chances are that is a really good niche. So let's continue with our carnivore diet example. How would I position this uniquely? Well, if you're a busy parent, you might position it as the busy parent's carnivore coach, focusing on how to follow the diet with limited time and picky kids around. If you have a medical background, maybe you're the evidence-based carnivore who breaks down studies and research. Or maybe you combine it with fitness, like the carnivore athlete focusing on performance optimization. And my personal favorite, if you've overcome health issues with this diet, you could position it as the autoimmune carnivore, helping people with specific health conditions use the diet therapeutically. See how each is in the same niche, but the positioning is completely different? That is how you stand out. Now let's move on to the next step. Redefine your niche. The niche 2.0 concept is incredibly important because a traditional niche is just a specialized market segment, what you do and who you serve. And yes, I still recommend starting with what I call a niche hypothesis statement, which is I help X do Y with Z. Or if you want to simplify it, I help X get Y. Or if you're in a very saturated competitive market, I help X do Y by Z without A. So the without helps you separate yourself even further. So an example of this would be, I help accountants become financial controllers with my straight line framework. That's very specific and it's a good place to start. And this is actually one of my clients' niches. So everyone knows what an accountant is, but financial controllers are basically a very high level accountant that makes a ton of money, over $200,000 a year. Now, I recommend being specific with your niche and who you help. But here's the thing. Almost no business and almost no YouTube channel starts off with a very specific niche and keeps that niche forever. That happens extremely rarely. Just as an example, YouTube, the website that you're watching this video on right now, started off as a dating app. It was literally just a video dating app. And what did they find? There was a massive amount of demand for people who wanted to store videos and have them public on their profiles. And so they shifted from being a dating app to basically what they are today, a video streaming platform. Now, if they would have named this website videodating.com instead of youtube.com, then none of this would have ever been possible because they would have pigeonholed themselves into that niche. But because of the fact that they had a relatively broad brand name, YouTube, it worked. And another really easy way to do that when you pick your name is to just simply use a personal brand. Personal branding is incredibly powerful. In fact, some of the most powerful people in the world grew their power with personal brand, as well as some of the richest people in the world. Just think of Elon Musk. Do you think he runs all of his companies himself? No, he's just got a massive, powerful personal brand, and then he hires extremely smart people to run his companies for him. But he's able to do that because of his personal brand. And this is why I always advocate to pick a personal brand channel, because you are a living, breathing, changing organism that is going to evolve and change over time. You're going to have different interests over time, and you want to be able to change those so that if a better opportunity pops up, you can take it. And with the niche 2.0 framework, you have to understand that you are the niche. This means that you have the freedom to evolve topics while keeping your audience. People follow you, not just your topic. And although it is a little bit transactional when you first make content, eventually you want people to not just watch your content because of the content itself, but you want them to watch your content because of you, because they're following you, right? So let's just say your niche was talking about some type of business strategy, let's say Facebook ads, and then 10 years from now, Facebook ads don't exist. Well, you don't want your entire channel to be worthless if the market changes. You want to be able to pivot your channel to talking about topics that are still worthwhile. And by positioning yourself as a human being, a personal brand who has interests and a personality, you're going to be able to do that because people will follow you for you. So for our carnivore diet example, this is where we create your niche hypothesis statement. I help X get Y with Z. So instead of I teach the carnivore diet, you could say I help busy professionals overcome autoimmune issues through simplified carnivore meal protocols. But here's the niche 2.0 difference. You're not trapped as the autoimmune carnivore guy forever. First of all, if it doesn't work out for you for whatever reason, either you don't like it or the audience doesn't like it or it's not profitable, you can always switch to something else. And then even if it does work out for you, as your audience grows, you can expand to other elimination diets, then to general wellness, and eventually to productivity and peak performance. Because again, you are the niche. You're the person who takes complex health solutions and makes them work for busy people. And that's way more powerful than being boxed in by a specific diet. All right, so the next step is to set your personality dials. Think of these like knobs that you can adjust to make your content uniquely yours. The first dial, your channel name and branding. You've got options. Use your real name, use your first name plus something else like Felix and Friends. Use your first name with a pseudonym like I did, like Shane Hummus. Use a complete pseudonym like Tom Nash, right? He's a big finance YouTuber, but that's not his real name. Or you could use your name plus your niche, like Marco Whiteboard Finance. Now, if you do the last one, be careful to not get too specific or you will limit yourself. Then comes the second dial, positioning. You can position yourself as a learner, like Cameron, who documented learning chess, an enthusiast, like Gotham Chess, who's really good, but he's not a grandmaster yet, or an expert, like Daniel Naroditsky, who's a super grandmaster. So those were all chess examples just to simplify things. And you can start off with any of those. Like, if you truly are a world-class expert on those things, that's totally fine. You can position yourself as an expert. But I think the sweet spot when it comes to positioning is an expert enthusiast hybrid, similar to nomad capitalist. So the expert enthusiast hybrid is perfect because you can make mass market content that attracts a wide audience, and it's basically beginner friendly enough for them to understand, but you can still bring in your target clients. So with Nomad Capitalist, for instance, he helps 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners optimize their taxes, but he gets millions of views a month. So obviously 99% of the people who watch his channel are not 7, 8, or 9-figure business owners. However, the 1% that does will very likely be interested in his stuff, and he likely attracts more people overall than if he just made niche content. Now, the third dial is entertainment versus education ratio, and I recommend being about 80% education and 20% entertainment. You don't want to be too boring, but you also don't want to be seen as a dancing clown, a court jester, because people don't respect court jesters and they're not going to buy their products and services. People do buy from education channels because you're solving real problems for real people with real money, whereas entertainment channels need mass market views to make money because conversion rates are very low. Now, the fourth dial is controversial versus family friendly, and I recommend being 20 to 40% controversial and 60 to 80% family friendly. Now, some of my most popular videos are ones like the most useless degrees. A little bit controversial, but not so much that I'd get in trouble. Another great example is Graham Stephan. His thumbnails and titles might be a bit controversial. For instance, the market is crashing, but his content overall is extremely family friendly. So for our carnivore diet creator, let's set these dials. Channel name, if your name is Mike, we could maybe call you Carnivore Mike. And this works while you're building, but a channel like Mike Primal Health gives you more flexibility to evolve later. But honestly, the best way to go with your channel name is just to use your full name. I happen to use a pseudonym for my last name simply because everyone mispronounces my last name. So my last name is Hummuson, but my pseudonym on YouTube is Hummus. Now, when it comes to positioning, if you've personally had success with a diet, an enthusiast position works great. You're not a doctor, right? So you're not an expert, but you've experienced the benefits firsthand. However, if it's your first time trying the carnivore diet, you might position yourself as a learner. And then you could start making videos like my first week on the carnivore diet. And then eventually you might evolve into an enthusiast and eventually maybe even an expert. Next is the entertainment education ratio. So for health content, I'd recommend 70% education and 30% entertainment, right? Show your transformation, do some day in the life content, and add occasional humor about meat-eating stereotypes. And plus, just showcase your personality. And then when it comes to controversy level, well, this is already a somewhat controversial diet, so I'd probably go for maybe 30% controversial and 70% family-friendly. And you can do this by focusing on the results rather than attacking other diets. And these dials create a unique channel personality that stands out from other carnivore content creators. All right, so the next step is create a hybrid personal brand. Now, a hybrid personal brand is basically where you have a golden goose, which is you, and then you lay eggs, which would be your companies, that at some point you can potentially sell. And this really gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you the connection of a personal brand, but the sellability of a business. Think about it. Elon Musk has way more followers than Tesla. Steve Jobs is way bigger than Apple. And Bill Gates is bigger than Microsoft, especially when they first began the companies. And the reason this works so well is people are social animals. We want to relate to other human beings. We don't want to buy from faceless corporations. We're sick and tired of doing that. But the problem with a pure personal brand is that you can't sell it. And that's why I created the hybrid personal brand framework. Think about it this way. You are the golden goose, and the companies you create are the golden eggs. Look at Elon Musk, for instance. He created or bought SpaceX, PayPal, SolarCity, Tesla, Twitter, Neuralink, OpenAI, and now Grok. And most of these have absolutely nothing to do with each other. But they all grew faster because they were connected to his personal brand. He's the golden goose, and all the companies are his golden eggs. And he can sell parts of them or maybe even the whole company if he wants to. And this is how you should approach YouTube as well. You're not just the AI guy or the fitness girl. You're a growing, changing human who can launch different ventures from your personal brand. Now, with our carnivore diet example, here's how we'd build the hybrid personal brand. You, the creator, are the golden goose, the face that people connect with and trust. And your golden eggs could be a carnivore meal planning app, a supplement line for carnivore dieters, a coaching program, and a cookbook. And each of these assets could potentially be sold separately from your personal brand. And as you evolve from strict carnivore to broader health topics, you can launch new golden eggs without starting from zero. And this is exactly why someone like Mark Sisson evolved from strict paleo to broader primal concepts to keto, etc. And then he created and sold multiple 8-figure businesses along the way while maintaining his personal brand. All right, the next step is to understand your audience deeply. So most people only look at demographics, age, location, gender, etc. And that's surface level. What you really need to understand are psychographics, the things that you can't easily see, but are just as important. For example, demographics might tell you that someone is single, earns $200,000, they're female, and they live in New York City, and they're a medical professional, and they're 36 years old on average. But psychographics tell you that she's an NBA fan. She values family bonds. She's a good saver. She enjoys island vacations. She loves dogs, and she listens to classical music. So if you understand psychographics, you'll be a marketing monster. Look at Iman Gadzhi. He sells an SMA course, but only talks about that in 1 out of every 4 videos that he makes. The rest are about cars, watches, books, self-development, monk mode, or buying his mom a house, etc. Why? Because he understands that people that would be likely to be interested in starting an SMMA are also interested in those other things that I just said. The secret is to talk about things that everyone is thinking in their head, but almost no one is saying out loud. So I did this with college degrees. Americans are suspicious of a system that basically forces them to spend $100,000 or even more when you count opportunity costs on degrees that might not be worth it. And I talked about this truth that everybody was thinking, but very few people were saying. And as Russell Brunson says in Expert Secrets, people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. Now, for our carnivore diet audience, let's go beyond basic demographics. Yes, they're probably 24 to 45, slightly more male than female, and they have disposable income for quality meat. But the psychographics are what matter. They're likely ex-keto dieters looking for the next level. They're skeptical of mainstream nutrition advice. They probably value optimization and biohacking, and they likely follow people like Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, and Paul Saladino. Many are also dealing with chronic health issues that are usually related to inflammation that conventional medicine hasn't solved. And they value self-experimentation and taking health into their own hands. They probably also care about fitness, particularly strength training, and they likely have interests in hunting, sustainability, and ancestral living. These insights tell us to create content that speaks to health rebels who don't trust conventional wisdom, value self-reliance, and want evidence that they can verify through their own experience and testing. Knowing this is 100 times more powerful than knowing the basic demographics of your audience. Now, by the way, for almost all of these steps, you can check out the GPT that I put down in the description in the pinned comment below because it'll help you with them tremendously. The next step is to be the king of a puddle. So when you're starting out, you need to absolutely dominate a very specific niche. Don't try to be a small fish in the ocean. Be the biggest fish in a tiny puddle. In my case, I started off talking about college degrees and different types of alternative education. That was my sub niche, and not many others were doing it. Just to give you an example of how specific some of my most successful clients are, one of my clients targets successful French dads that are over the age of 40. So we're talking CEOs, lawyers, doctors, executives, etc. And he helps them to lose body fat and get fit so that they can spend more quality time with their family. Super specific. And he makes $10 million a year. Now, how niche you need to go depends on how saturated your market is. So now the fitness niche is mega saturated. So like my client, you may need to go down 3 or 4 levels. But once you're the king of the puddle, you can expand to a pond, then to a lake, then to a river, then to the ocean. And it's all if you want to. Or you can just stay the king of your puddle and make millions. It's your choice. Now, for our carnivore diet example, the ocean would be health and nutrition. The lake might be low-carb diets, and the pond is a carnivore diet. But to be the king of a puddle, you need to go deeper. Maybe your puddle is the carnivore diet specifically for people who suffer from autoimmune diseases, or the carnivore diet for athletes over 40. Even more specific, carnivore diet meal plans for busy moms with Hashimoto's disease. That's a puddle that you can absolutely dominate. You'll be the go-to person for that specific intersection, and you can own it quickly. And then you can make the decision on whether you want to expand from there. So maybe you'd go from that to carnivore for all autoimmune conditions, then to all elimination diets for autoimmune conditions, and so on. Start super specific, dominate completely, then expand strategically. The next step is to test and expand. And this is where you create content on multiple related topics and let your audience's response guide your direction. So my path went from college degrees to alternative education, to careers, to remote jobs, to side hustles, to making money online in general. But I didn't just jump straight from college degrees to investing strategies. I evolved slowly, building trust with my audience along the way. Think about it like a new friendship. If you met someone at a portrait photography class, you wouldn't immediately ask them to go on a weekend trip to Mexico. They'd think you're crazy. But if you first invited them to take portrait photos together, then a few weeks later suggested landscape photography, then videography, then maybe a painting class, a few months later, by the time you suggest that trip to Mexico, they're probably going to say yes. Why? Because they've built a real relationship with you, and it's no longer transactional. They actually care about you. Now, as you expand, keep about 80% of your content the same, and then experiment with the last 20%. And if you're an established business, focus on tracking leads and sales from YouTube, not just views. Now, with our carnivore diet example, here's how testing and expanding might look. Start with your core content. Carnivore diet for autoimmune disease. Then test slightly adjacent topics. How carnivore compares to the AIP diet for autoimmune disease, and adding back foods after carnivore diet elimination, and carnivore diet lab results explained. Then track which videos perform best and expand in those directions. Maybe your audience responds really well to the lab testing content. Great, then you could broaden to content like key blood tests that everyone should get, or how to read your own lab results. You're not jumping from carnivore straight to general health. You're building a bridge that allows your audience to follow you across. And this is exactly how I evolved from college degrees to making money online in general, by doing small strategic steps that your audience can follow. Now, like I said before, don't forget to grab the free niche validator GPT in the description below. It'll help with all of these steps. And if you're serious about scaling your YouTube channel to 7 figures, for a limited time, we're giving away a free demo call. We'll diagnose your situation like a doctor, figure out what your goals are, and create a customized plan to get you there. And you can check that out down in the description and the pinned comment below. Plus, check out this video from Sean, who is stuck making 0 to 30K per month for a very long time. And within 9 months of working with us, he scaled all the way to over $600,000 a month by clicking right here.